The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
Congress must choose. Will you continue to protect predators, or will you finally protect survivors?
Speaking out, Jeffrey Epstein accusers recount their trauma with a demand to Congress to act. What the House did today to answer that call.
On the boat, you had massive amounts of drugs. We have tapes of them speaking. It was massive amounts of drugs coming into our country to kill a lot of people.
The war on drugs moves into new territory. But did that strike on a drug boat go too far? What experts say about the president's show of strength. And then a judge considers blocking evidence from being public from the Idaho University murders. Why the police unsealed a batch of photos anyways. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Taylor Murray. We begin tonight with breaking news out of Massachusetts. FBI, state, and local police are searching for a suspect seen with a long gun near the UMass Lowell campus. The university remains on lockdown with a shelter-in-place order active. As far as we know, no shots have been fired. There are no injuries, but it is believed that a man wielding a gun came onto campus today, and they have not been taken into custody yet. Of course, this is a developing situation, so stay with us as we continue to track all the updates throughout the night. We'll have coverage for you both here on air, also online at thenationaldesk.com. A new ICE detention facility dubbed Camp 47 is coming to Louisiana's state penitentiary. Touted by the Trump administration to house the worst of the worst, the facility will expand the number of detention beds for immigrants facing deportation. Officials have yet to announce how many beds will be at that new detention center in Angola. The location for Camp 47 is known as the Alcatraz of the South, surrounded by the Mississippi River. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Mexico meeting with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum as the Trump administration cracks down on illegal immigrations and drug cartels. Now, Sheinbaum has condemned recent immigration raids in the United States. During his visit, Rubio stressed the importance of cooperating with the U.S. on security, trade, and, of course, migration.
The migration numbers today at the U.S. southern border are the lowest they have ever been. And that is due and thanks and great credit to President Trump for the efforts he's undertaken, but I think also to the efforts of the authorities here in Mexico.
The U.S. military has ramped up airborne surveillance of Mexican drug cartels, and Trump has authorized the Pentagon to begin using military force against the groups. Rubio plans to visit Ecuador tomorrow. A federal appeals court says the president cannot use the Alien Enemies Act to quickly deport accused Venezuelan gang members. The Trump administration has deported people designated as Tren de Aragua members to a notorious prison in El Salvador. The case could go to the Supreme Court. Now, this decision came down yesterday. It was the same day the U.S. Navy struck a Venezuelan drug boat. For more on this, we go to National News Desk, Kayla Gaskins.
The Trump administration waging an all-out war on drug cartels.
We have to protect our country, and we're going to.
Tuesday morning, the U.S. military striking a boat suspected of carrying illegal drugs across the Caribbean. President Trump touting the action from the Oval Office.
You see the bags of drugs all over the boat, and they were hit. Obviously, they won't be doing it again, and I think a lot of other people won't be doing it again when they watch that tape.
The operation killed 11 individuals the White House labeled as terrorists who allegedly belonged to the gang Tren de Aragua. The vessel had departed from Venezuela and was reportedly headed for the U.S.
We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing, trying to poison our country with illicit drugs. President Trump is willing to go on offense in ways that others have not been.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying this is just the beginning of a war on drug cartels.
The President of the United States is going to wage war on narco-terrorist organizations. This one was operating in international waters, headed towards the United States to flood our country with poison. And under President Trump, those days are over.
On Wednesday, Rubio visited Mexico City to meet with President Claudia Sheinbaum. They discussed securing the border and combating drug cartels. The meeting comes after Mexican leaders have expressed concerns over the United States infringing on their sovereignty.
The last time I checked, We don't need another country's permission to safeguard our own national security.
Sinclair spoke with former acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan.
That's exactly why the president labeled the cartels a terrorist organization. Now, look, we could debate whether, that there's substance behind that or not. It doesn't matter, because what it does show how serious the Trump administration has taken the cartels.
And Taylor, this week a federal appeals court blocked the White House from using an 18th century wartime law to deport those accused of being Venezuelan gang members.
And Kayla, back to that strike in the Caribbean. Some legal experts are now raising concerns over the legality of the operation. So what are they saying?
Well, some international law experts are warning the action may have gone too far. Under the United Nations Charter, countries are only allowed to use military force in self-defense. President Trump has accused Nicaragua of waging irregular warfare against the U.S., and the State Department has designated the group a foreign terror organization. Still, some legal experts say that doesn't make the strike lawful, and that even labeling the cartel as narco-terrorists doesn't automatically make them military targets, pointing out the U.S. is not at war with Venezuela or this criminal group. But not everyone sees it that way. Senator Lindsey Graham defended the action, calling it a welcome show of strength. From Washington, Taylor.
From Washington, D.C., Kayla Gaskins, thank you. With rising tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela, a report published Friday with support of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights shares the latest data on migrants turned around at the southern border. It says more than 14,000, mainly Venezuelan migrants who hope to reach the U.S., have reversed course and turned south since President Trump's immigration crackdown began. Now, the report goes on to say that northward migration has dropped 97% this year, with U.S. immigration policy no longer open to asylum seekers.
I know what it's like to be trafficked to others. I know that the files contain the names of powerful men who have been shielded because of their fame or their fortune. Congress must choose. Will you continue to protect predators, or will you finally protect survivors?
Many of the women who you just heard from there accusing Jeffrey Epstein of crimes held two separate press conferences today seeking full transparency and accountability in the alleged trafficking scheme orchestrated by Epstein, as well as other unnamed high-profile perpetrators. Now, these victims also spoke at the Capitol, detailing their horrors, asking more people to join their fight to end sex trafficking.
There are many pieces of my story that I can't remember, no matter how hard I try. My therapist says that my brain is just trying to protect itself. But it's so hard to begin to heal knowing that there are people out there who know more about my abuse than I do.
Sometimes it's hard to believe that I had to sue the United States just to learn that my abuser was given immunity.
If I spoke out, who would believe me? Who would protect me? Epstein surrounded himself, with the most powerful leaders of our country and the world.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives formally approved the Oversight Committee's investigation into Epstein. Oversight Chairman James Comer declassified 33,000 pages last night, but Democrats and Republicans alike say there is very little information that's new to the public. Chairman Comer insists the truth will come out, but it will take time.
This dates back to 6 presidential administrations where the victims have never received the accountability that they deserve from the criminals who groomed them and who sex trafficked them. Now we're going to hopefully find out why there was a government cover-up, why the government failed these victims, and hopefully they can seek justice.
Also at the Capitol today, several Democratic lawmakers from across the country calling out the continued presence of the National Guard in Washington, D.C. This is President Trump mulls sending federal forces into other cities in an effort to reduce crime. The members called the decision unlawful as well as a manufactured crisis.
President Trump has used D.C. residents as props in a political play to showcase his own power.
Abusing the power of the National Guard is not about protecting public safety. It's about control.
Now, despite these comments, the National Guard could be staying on the streets of Washington, D.C. through the end of the year. D.C.'s mayor, Democrat Muriel Bowser, who initially spoke out against the federal reinforcements, signed an executive order requiring local law enforcement to cooperate with federal agents to, quote, maximum extent allowable by law. This order has no expiration. And Attorney General Pam Bondi posting on X this morning the latest crime numbers out of the district. Now look at this. In the near 30 days since the National Guard was called into the nation's capital, there have been more than 1,700 arrests and almost 200 firearm confiscations. President Trump today talked about the possible next stop for the National Guard.
We're going to be going to maybe Louisiana, and you have New Orleans, which has a crime problem. We'll straighten that out in about 2 weeks. It'll take us 2 weeks, easier than D.C. But we could straighten out Chicago. All they have to do is ask us.
Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife Usha in Minneapolis today visiting the memorial at the Annunciation Catholic Church. The White House says the second couple is also holding private meetings with victim families to convey condolences. 23 people were shot last week, 2 children killed, 18 others and 3 adults injured. 3 children and 1 adult remain hospitalized today. And while the Vances were at the church, demonstrators were across the street demanding gun control. Yesterday, Governor Tim Walz called for a special session and hopes to enact stricter gun laws in Minnesota. More than 100 survivors and relatives of victims of Maine's deadliest mass shooting are suing the federal government, all claiming the shooting was preventable. 18 people were killed, another 13 injured in October of 2023 when an Army reservist with documented mental health issues, Robert Card, began shooting inside a bowling alley. Now, plaintiffs say the Army knew Card was violent and paranoid with access to firearms. The Defense Department says it will not comment on ongoing litigation. A big story out of the Sunshine State. Florida is planning to get rid of all childhood vaccine mandates there. Today, Florida's Surgeon General said some mandates can be removed by the state health department, but others will need action from the legislature. Governor Ron DeSantis said lawmakers will introduce a medical freedom package incorporating recommendations from a new Make America Healthy Again commission. Now, this comes as over 1,000 current and former employees of the Department of Health and Human Services want Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to resign. In a letter to him and members of Congress, the employees claim RFK is putting the health of all Americans at risk. Even some Republicans are not sure if he should stay.
But what I'm most interested in is restoring the confidence of the American people in public health in America, and so far that hasn't been done. There's just been too much chaos. It's a goat rodeo over there.
This is about children's health. This is about how we protect the children of the United States of America. And there's allegations that that health is being endangered. We need to, I'm not presupposing anybody's right or wrong. We got to get to the bottom of it.
An HHS spokesperson argues RFK always planned on making drastic reforms while staying committed to evidence-based science. Coming up, the region that's getting hit with temperatures over 100 degrees and when this heat wave is expected to let up. Then a choreographed show for the world to see, what some are calling the threat of a new world order. Plus, the steps OpenAI is taking to make ChatGPT safer now that it's facing a wrongful death lawsuit from a family. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Wildfires raging in California have forced hundreds of people out of their homes to seek safety. An intense, dry California storm Tuesday brought an outbreak of lightning across the Central Valley and Bay Area, prompting these new evacuation orders. Nearly 5,000 lightning strikes were reported, sparking the latest wildfires. The TCU September Lightning Complex, which ripped through the historic gold rush town of Chinese Camp yesterday, is currently burning over 11,000 acres. A meteorological fall began on Monday, but in the Northwest, of course, it feels very much like the dead of summer. Extreme heat warnings are in effect for parts of Oregon and Washington state, with heat advisories also in Montana and Idaho. Temperatures exceeding 100 again today, and these heat warnings will continue tomorrow, but some relief is on the way. Cooler temperatures will return by the weekend. I know everyone out there is excited for that. All right, well, Hurricane Kiko is upgraded to a major Category 3 storm as it slowly approaches the Hawaiian Islands. We've been keeping a close eye on this. The latest forecast models predict Kiko to now pass north of the Big Island, but there are models that show a more direct hit. That hurricane won't get to Hawaii before next week. President Trump is responding to strengthening global alliances not seen for decades, with the top adversaries of the United States banding together amid a display of weapons and military might. He tried to keep it positive, but also accused them of conspiring against the U.S. Here's National News Desk Christine Frizzell.
The extraordinary images from the streets of Beijing meant to display to the world a show of force. From military weapons to national unity. As Chinese President Xi Jinping's car passes, troops shout they should follow the party's command, fight to win.
The Chinese nation is the great nation that is never intimidated by any bullies and always values independence and forges ahead.
Dubbed as a celebration of the victory against Japan in World War II, it was much more than a demonstration of military might, but a preview of strengthening alliances, acknowledged by President Trump in a post on his social media site, writing, "Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America."
I thought it was a beautiful ceremony. I thought it was very, very impressive. But I understood the reason they were doing it, and they were hoping I was watching, and I was watching.
Experts say the entire event is meant as a challenge to the post-World War II New World Order, with leaders from India and Iran also attending.
Having this Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, the president of Iran, all there reinforce China's role as the centerpiece of a new coalition that is basically there to challenge the West. And his message was, this is what we challenge it with.
The remarkable display occurring as Russia's violent invasion of Ukraine carries on, which the United States and much of the West has tried to stop. Its punishments to countries which have helped to prop up Russia's military and economy so far have not served as a deterrent. Many of those countries now standing together in China. As far as the leaders from Russia and China, President Trump said once again his, quote, relationship with all of them is very good, adding, we're going to find out how good it is in the next week or two. I'm Christine Frizzell for the National News Desk.
New photos from the University of Idaho quadruple murder investigation are now out. Idaho State Police released hundreds of pictures of the crime scene and what appears to be the apartment of Brian Koberger, who's serving multiple life sentences. A judge is still considering a request from some of the victims' family members to stop the release of more photos. A woman known as the Ketamine Queen has pleaded guilty to selling a fatal dose of drugs to actor Matthew Perry. 42-year-old Jasveen Senga, a U.S. and U.K. dual citizen, pleaded guilty today to those 5 charges. Prosecutors agreed to drop 3 other charges unrelated to Perry's death. Senga will be sentenced on December 10th. She could get up to 65 years behind bars. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. From Washington State, where a high-speed police chase was caught on camera, to Washington, D.C., where a man was shot and killed at a community rec center. We are taking the pulse of America.
You don't want to hear that type of thing. We're not in a war zone area.
The D.C. crime map shows that since the start of the year, one person was killed a block away and another right in front of the rec center.
There's been many times when our neighbors have gone to help people who have been shot that were in the street.
I spoke to Commissioner Harry Thomas Jr. after learning the man shot at the community center died.
There were a couple of programs that were spearheaded amongst about bringing more services and providing what we call the community service providers.
There was just an ANC meeting maybe last week, 2 weeks ago, and they were talking about ways to utilize the rec center a bit more, especially for the youth and activities and stuff like that.
They hold meetings. We do see, but unfortunately, it's like in anything else you do. We vote. The votes really don't count. You have these meetings and we say what it is we want, or what we need. But I mean, whose hands does it really lay on?
Authorities say that's Andre Lapuliak running from multiple different agencies not once, but at least 3 times in the same night. Officials say he ran from Lacey police after trying to break into a car, taking off in a vehicle that was later determined to be stolen, with license plates that were also stolen. Minutes later, Thurston County Sheriff Derek Sanders caught up with the suspect vehicle, only to be forced to stop chasing after the suspect topped 120 miles an hour, going the wrong way on I-5.
This is the first time I've seen someone do 120 right down the fast lane, going the wrong way. People swerving out of the way. That's a scenario where no one survives that car crash.
Authorities were finally able to capture Lapuliak with help from above, with Washington State Patrol's plane.
Coming up, the nation's 2 largest teachers' unions donating millions to left-wing causes. The new bombshell report breaking down where the money went and to whom right after this. ChatGPT will have parental oversight within the next month. OpenAI says it is strengthening protections for teens. Parents will be able to link accounts with their teen, control how the app responds with age-appropriate rules, and get notifications if the system detects stress from the teenager. This comes as a family is suing the company, claiming that ChatGPT caused their son's suicide. The nation's 2 largest teachers' unions are under fire as reports show they poured tens of millions of dollars into far-left political organizations. The National News Desk Jeff Harris reports on the investigation from parental rights group Defending Education.
Defending Education looked at about 2 years' worth of contributions from the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers. What it found, the 2 unions spent a combined $43.5 million to fund left-wing groups. Launched about 4.5 years ago, Defending Education is a national grassroots organization working to restore schools at all levels from what they say are activists imposing harmful agendas.
Dedicated to the proposition that every American school kid deserves a high-quality
quality, value-neutral education.
Sarah Parshall-Perry, Defending Education's VP, tells us its latest investigation found from 2022 to 2024, the AFT and NEA gave over $43.5 million to left-wing and far-left political organizations.
Teachers exist to educate. They don't exist to indoctrinate. So when their unions spend their union dollars on these political causes, we have a great deal of concern with that.
The report finding the AFT gave over $14 million, the NEA nearly $29 million, including a combined $9.3 million to the For Our Future Action Fund.
That's dedicated specifically to electing Democrats in swing states.
Some other notable contributions from the AFT, $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation, and multiple groups focusing on left-wing political candidates, like the Democratic Governors Association and Senate Majority PACs. As for the NEA, $500,000 went to Future Forward USA Action and over $600,000 to Democracy Alliance, who also receives funds from George Soros. Neither union has responded to our request for comment, but on its website, the AFT says it's a union of professionals that champions fairness, democracy, and economic opportunity for students, their families, and communities. Now, on the NEA's website, it lists 7 core values that define its mission to advocate for education professionals. They include equal opportunity, democracy, professionalism, and also collective action. I'm Jeff Harris reporting from Washington.
Coming up, maybe you've seen them in your neighborhood. The cities where self-driving taxis are being tested this week as Waymo expands its services. We'll be right back. Self-driving car company Waymo brings its robo-taxis to Denver and Seattle for testing. Kicking off this week, 2 electric models of Waymo's fleet will be manually driven before the company validates its tech and operations. Waymo plans to offer autonomous services in the future in these cities and eventually expand across the U.S. The driverless ride-hailing service is already available in Austin, Atlanta, and San Francisco. The future is here, people. All right, that's all the time we have for now on this edition of the National News Desk. We invite you to join us again tonight with more from Attorney General Pam Bondi and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and their comments about the Louisiana lockup. I'm Taylor Murray. Thanks for watching.